Welcome to the True Crime Never Sleeps podcast. I'm your host, Larry Lease. Today on another episode of Shit Out of Luck, we take a look at deranged killer Ed Gein, how he was eventually captured by the authorities. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Poddex. What is Poddex, you ask? Well, that is a great question. Poddex are the hottest new tool for podcasters looking to have more meaningful conversations or gamify their podcast. Simply shuffle up, ask a question, and let the content roll. You can get yours today at poddex.com and use the code Larry21 for 10% off your order. And now, as always, if you want to be a part of the show, send us a voicemail. Let us know your thoughts on the topics we covered, or maybe you got maybe there's something we missed that you can add to an episode. Let us know. Just call 682-305-0483. And as always, you can stay anonymous if you'd like. And now, on to Shit Out of Luck with Ed Gein. Deranged killer Ed Gein was notorious for being a necrophiliac who skinned the bodies of his victims to make clothing and furniture. The wild nature of his crimes inspired a wave of horror movies and books that are cemented in pop culture today, such as Silence of the Lambs and Psycho, but it all started on a Wisconsin farm in the 1950s. Gein spent most of his childhood on this farmland, living with his parents and brother, and spent most of his life there, rarely leaving, except for school. In the early 1940s, the family lost their patriarch when his father George died, leaving behind the brothers and their mother. Their upbringing under her guidance was considered to be controlling and iron-fisted, and apparently she taught her sons to have what can be considered problematic views based on her religious beliefs. By 1945, Ed was the last living member of his immediate family. His mother died that year, and his brother had died in a sketchy fire the year before. Gein had grown up on the farm, secluded from society, and he remained there after the death of his mother. But after her death, he spiraled downhill. It is believed that during this time period, Gein was grieving, but also honed his sick and depraved nature, who later confirmed to police that he visited graveyards to recover the bodies of dead women. Gein is said to have defiled the corpses' dismembered parts and preserved organs and skinned them to wear, according to history. As in history.com, I should say. But it's possible no one would have known what he was up to until a local woman who ran a hardware store went missing in 1957. Shop owner Bernice Warden vanished in November that year. Her son, a police officer, began investigating her disappearance and suspected one person in particular, Gein. Despite him keeping to himself on his farm, locals mostly knew him to be an odd loner and a raised suspicion. He was the last known person seen with Warden and had even attempted to invite her out on a date days prior. When he was spotted driving her pickup truck, he became the main suspect in her disappearance. When police descended on his farmhouse, what they found was one of the most shocking crime scenes. A trail of blood led to a shed on the property. Not only did they find Bernice Warden, who was dead and hanging inside the shed, they also found the severed head of Mary Hogan, who went missing in 1954. Investigators eventually determined that both Warden and Hogan's deaths were caused by a gunshot. Investigators had also discovered the body parts of other women in different parts of Gein's house. Police recovered various, quote, household items actually made for human remains. They included things like a belt made of nipples, human skulls as bowls, chairs made of skin, and more. The skulls of 10 women were found on his property, but police believed the parts he defiled came from a total of 15 women, some whom were never identified. Gein was found in a neighbor's house. He was then arrested and charged. Gein would admit to killing Warden and Hogan, the grave robbing, and his war practice of skinning and wearing human flesh. He spent the rest of his life in a mental institution until he died in 1984. But let's go back a little bit and really take a look at his mother. Because you know what they say, a boy's best friend is his mother. Which became synonymous with Anthony Perkins' unnerving portrayal of a certain homicidal mama's boy, Norman Bates, in Psycho. But we all know Hitchcock ripped his script from the pages of Robert Bloch's book, Psycho, and that the character Bates was based on the so-called butcher of Plainfield, Wisconsin, Ed Gein. He had a deeply dysfunctional bond with his mother, murdered at least 2 women, and robbed dozens of graves. Like we said, he fashioned women's remains into clothing and furniture. He admitted to targeting women who reminded him of his mother, so it might come as a surprise then that Norman Bates' deranged relationship with his mom wasn't modeled after Gein. As the Post-Crescent recounts, Bloch says in his 1993 autobiography, "I knew very little of the details concerning that case and virtually nothing about Gein himself at the time. Later, he was struck by eerie similarity. According to an essay in Peeping Through the Holes, the author originally drew inspiration from the work of Sigmund Freud, reasoning that such a ghoulish killer would harbor Oedipal longings. However, the true nature of Gein's fixations was more complex. Ed Gein's worst friend was his mother. Ed Gein grew up on a Wisconsin farm with his brother, Henry, his father, George, and his mother, Augusta. Like we previously kind of hinted at, Augusta and George had a miserable marriage. He was an alcoholic. She despised him but refused a divorce. Augusta forbade her children from having friends, and even beyond his mother's intervention, Ed suffered socially. He was shy, had a lazy eye, and a speech impediment that made him a prime target for bullies. Ed came home occasionally crying. George would repeatedly beat him on the head till his ears started ringing. Meanwhile, Augusta browbeat Ed and Henry because she thought they would turn out like their alcoholic father. She was also vehemently puritanical and preached that sex and women were sinful. One time when she caught a 12-year-old Ed pleasuring himself in the bathtub, she pinched his privates and described them as the curse of man. When Ed was 34, his father died, and several years later, his brother perished fighting a fire. That left him with his mother, and after she died in 1945, Gein became obsessed with sex, dismemberment, and human experiments conducted by Nazis at concentration camps. He eventually enlisted a friend to help him rob graves so he could act out carnal fantasies and engaged in cannibalism. Among these corpses was his mother. As time went on, and as his depravity grew more desperate, he eventually resorted to murder. Now let us know in the comment section below. Did we miss anything? If we did, let us know. Is there any other topics you'd like us to cover in future Shit Out of Luck episodes? As always, you can find us on social media, right up here, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just search True Crime Never Sleeps podcast, and you'll be able to find it. As always, please hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. You can even rate us now on Good Pods and Spotify. And if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TCNS. Your support helps the channel grow. We can upgrade our equipment with your support, hire new hosts, hire writers, researchers, make this channel more than just a one-man show. And then, hopefully, with your support, we can also take this show on the road. Record live from famous crime scenes all over the world. Because I really want to have one episode in London over the Jack the Ripper case. That'd be kind of fun to do. And then hit up some of the California hotspots as well. But your support can help us do that. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/TCNS. And you can donate however much you'd like. Thank you for watching and listening. We will see you next time.